Welcome to our episode of Hong Kong Brief. Today, we're diving into a mix of political drama, financial shakeups, and intriguing research findings that are making headlines around the globe. So, grab your coffee, and let's get into it. First up, we're witnessing a political earthquake in Vietnam as President Vo Van Thuong steps down, leaving a leadership vacuum in one of Asia's booming economies. Over in China, the property sector is feeling the heat with Radiance Holdings defaulting on a hefty $300 million bond. Meanwhile, JP Morgan is stirring the pot with potential new leadership appointments in China, aiming to navigate through the challenges of scaling back operations. Switching gears to the world of science and sports, a study has highlighted the crucial role of a protein, BDNF, in muscle recovery post-exercise. This could be a game changer for athletes looking to enhance their performance. Speaking of game changers, Hong Kong's football scene is buzzing with Jorn Anderson backing the new technical director appointment, aiming for a World Cup fight. And on the financial front, Jiayin Group is eyeing a major collaboration with one of China's big four banks to bolster its loan facilitation services. But that's not all. We're also touching on the unchanged base rate by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, a deep dive into Taiwan's political landscape with Rex Hao, and a peek into the global markets reacting positively to the Fed's interest rate signals. Plus, Cathay Pacific is flying high despite challenges, Shenzhen's trade is booming, and there's a reality check on illegal border crossings into the US. And for those watching the stock market, Reddit's IPO is making waves, while Australian coal miners seek new financing avenues. Phew! That's a lot to unpack, and we're just scratching the surface. So, stay tuned for the detailed scoop on these stories and more. Please continue watching for more in-depth coverage. Political earthquake shakes up succession battle in Vietnam. Bloomberg. Vietnam's President Vo Van Thuong has resigned, leaving a leadership void in one of Asia's fastest-growing economies. The ouster marks a new phase of political uncertainty in the Communist Party's five-decade rule. The country, which has a capitalist bent, has benefited from an investment boom as multinational corporations look to diversify their supply chains away from China. China builder Radiance defaults on dollar bond amid sales slump. Bloomberg. Chinese developer Radiance Holdings Group has defaulted on a $300 million bond after missing a payment due on Wednesday. The company cited pressure in China's property sector and lack of improvement in sales as reasons for the default. This follows a turbulent month for the builder, during which its bond soared to 88 cents on the dollar as of Tuesday, after trading at around 50 cents 2 weeks ago. Chinese developers could face further defaults as home sales and buyer confidence remain weak. JP Morgan weighs naming new China chiefs in reshuffle. Bloomberg. JP Morgan Chase is reportedly considering appointing its Asia-Pacific CFO, Alan Ho, as the new CEO for China. Rita Chan, a key dealmaker who joined the bank from Goldman Sachs last year, is set to be in line to become senior country officer. The appointments would fill the gap left by Mark Leung, who resigned last month after a 25-year tenure at JP Morgan. The bank is reshuffling its leadership in China as global firms scale back operations in the country, with Asia-Pacific CEO Filippo Gori also departing for a global role in London. Protein in muscles plays key role in recovery after exercise, study finds. South China Morning Post. A protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, plays a crucial role in recovery following exercise, according to a study on mice. The international team of scientists found that BDNF signals to the body to replenish energy reserves in muscles after a workout. The protein, which was initially identified in the brain, was found to be essential for exercise-induced metabolic recovery and remodeling in skeletal muscle. The researchers said the findings could be used to improve sports performance and help athletes shorten their recovery time between training sessions. Loan matcher Jiayin in talks with one of China's big four banks. Bloomberg. Chinese loan facilitator Jiayin Group is in talks with a large state-owned bank to strengthen its pipeline. Jiayin currently facilitates consumer loans with over 70 financial institutions, but has not yet worked with the country's 4 largest lenders. The potential tie-up is part of Jiayin's efforts to partner with bigger lenders and phase out those that pose a risk. The company is also eyeing loan facilitation and fintech services in Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America to replicate its model in China. Hong Kong keeps base rate at 5.75% after U.S. Fed's vote to hold fire. South China Morning Post. The Hong Kong Monetary Authority, HKMA, has kept its key interest rate unchanged at 5.75%, following the Federal Reserve's decision to keep its target rate at 5.25% to 5.5%. The HKMA has maintained its base rate since 1983 in line with the Fed to preserve the local currency pegged to the US dollar. Q&A, Taiwan whistleblower Rex How on the challenge of generational change. Al Jazeera. Rex How, a former cultural advisor to Taiwan's KMT government, made headlines in 2013 when he publicly warned about the dangers of the Cross-Strait Service Trade Agreement, CSSTA, a free trade deal that would have opened Taiwan's service industry to Chinese investment. His warning helped spark the Sunflower Movement, a student-led protest that ultimately led to the defeat of the KMT in subsequent elections. However, in this year's election, many former activists and movement parties lost in their districts, and Ko Wen-je's Taiwan People's Party, TPP, replaced the Sunflower-era New Power Party as the third most represented party in the legislature. How believes that there is now a generational gap in Taiwanese politics and that the younger generation is not being adequately represented by the current parties. How's new book, Taiwan Unbound, A New Chapter, explores this generational gap and the need for greater understanding and representation of the younger generation's needs. He also discusses the impact of the Sunflower Movement on Taiwan in the long term, noting that it brought together various social movements and highlighted a generational gap in the country. However, he believes that the DPP has failed to connect with the younger generation in recent years, leading to the rise of Ko Wen-je's TPP as a more appealing choice for young voters. How also criticizes Ko Wen-je for his changing positions and lack of clear values, but acknowledges that he was able to capture the attention of young voters through his use of social media and online platforms. How concludes by emphasizing the importance of engaging with the younger generation and addressing their concerns. He believes that the DPP and other parties should not underestimate the power and influence of the younger generation, especially as Taiwan continues to face pressure from China. He argues that every election in Taiwan is related to China and that cognitive warfare from China was present in the recent election. To stay relevant and successful, parties must listen to and address the needs and desires of the younger generation. Asian stocks to echo U.S. gains on Fed rate signals, markets wrap. Bloomberg. Asian equities are set to rally after U.S. stocks surged to new highs following the Federal Reserve's indication that it will cut rates 3 times this year. Australian shares and equity futures for Japan and Hong Kong have all advanced. The Magnificent Seven group of megacaps powered to new highs, while U.S. small caps rose almost 2%. Australian and New Zealand bonds rallied, the Bloomberg Dollar Index extended losses, and gold rallied over 1% higher to trade over $2,200 an ounce for the first time. Cathay is the least worst among Asian airline stocks. Bloomberg. Despite facing delays, competition from rivals, and criticism from aviation regulators, shares in Cathay Pacific Airlines have climbed over the past 6 months, outperforming its peers. Investors appear to be less concerned about the airline's operational issues and more focused on what the stock can do for their portfolios. Cathay recently posted record annual profits, and although the stock saw a minor sell-off following the announcement, it has proven to be a better bet than other airlines. Cathay also has the advantage of having 3 eager shareholders and a small free float. China's Shenzhen sees trade swell, with impressive volumes to U.S. amid tech war. South China Morning Post. Shenzhen, China's southern tech hub, experienced a significant increase in exports during the first 2 months of 2022 due to rising demand for electric vehicles and an increase in deals with Belt and Road Initiative countries. Customs figures indicate that during this period, the value of goods shipped from the city reached 441.4 billion Chinese yuan, $61.3 billion, a YoY increase of 53.1%. The city's exports to the U.S. rose 62.4% YoY, while its trade with Belt and Road countries increased 57.8%. U.S. stocks hit records as Fed confirms plan for 2024 interest rate cuts. South China Morning Post. Wall Street indices reached new record highs after the Federal Reserve confirmed plans for interest rate cuts in the coming months. The Fed kept interest rates unchanged for a fifth consecutive meeting and maintained its forecast for 3 rate cuts in 2024. The decision allowed the market to breathe a sigh of relief, and investors welcomed Fed Chair Jerome Powell's description of the economy as relatively strong. The major U.S. indices all closed at all-time highs, with the Nasdaq gaining the most at 1.3%. Meanwhile, the dollar weakened against the euro and the pound. Don't believe the hype on illegal border crossings. Bloomberg. The number of individuals apprehended by U.S. Border Patrol agents is at a record high, but many are still getting past the agents. In the 1980s, only 1/3 of people trying to enter the U.S. from Mexico unlawfully were caught. Now, that figure is 90%. However, it's important to factor in how many people are getting past the agents, which is still a significant number. The rate of illegal crossings of the southwest border was lower in 2023 than it was in the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s. The nature of illegal immigration has also changed. Rather than mostly Mexicans trying to get past border agents, people from all over the world are turning themselves in and hoping they'll be allowed to stay. Reddit IPO prices at top of range to raise $748 million. Bloomberg. Social media platform Reddit has raised $748 million in its initial public offering, IPO, pricing shares at the top of the marketed range. The company sold 22 million shares for $34 each, giving it a market value of $5.4 billion, including stock options and restricted share units. Reddit's fully diluted valuation is closer to $6.4 billion. The IPO is being led by Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan Chase, and Bank of America, and shares are set to begin trading on the New York Stock Exchange under the symbol RDDT. Founded in 2005, Reddit averaged 73.1 million daily active unique visitors in Q4 2023. The company reported a net loss of $91 million on revenue of $804 million in 2023, compared with a net loss of about $159 million on revenue of $667 million the previous year. About 8% of the IPO shares are being set aside for Reddit users and moderators who created accounts before January 1, as well as some board members and friends and family of some employees and directors. Australian coal miners woo private capital as banks get leery. Bloomberg. Australian coal producers are turning to private credit lenders as traditional banks become more reluctant to finance the coal industry due to environmental, social, and governance (ESG) concerns. Sydney-based coal miner Whitehaven Coal recently secured a $1.1 billion loan from 17 private credit lenders and one bank. The growing prominence of private credit in the sector indicates that ESG proponents will face more challenges as banks move away from backing coal projects. Last year, Whitehaven was unable to extend a $653 million loan due to banks' unwillingness to lend to coal miners. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.